I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about episode 8 of series 20 of Taskmaster, and I'm so sad we've only got 2 episodes left after this one. It's gone way too quickly and I'm just really enjoying this series so far. And this one I think is continuing the really strong episodes that we've had. I thought this one was really good. Starting off as always with the prize task, and this one I really enjoyed. It was the best thing that has a surprise aspect to it, and it was the most surprising thing to Greg wins. I think the contestants can be really creative with this, and I think that's exactly what they've done. We started off with Reese, who brought in like an electric shock machine from like a vintage shop, and I really enjoyed this one because I actually saw one of these in like an antique shop, like antique charity shoppy thing a few weeks ago, and I thought it was really cool. I didn't buy it, but I thought it was really interesting, and so the fact that he brought it onto the show, I really enjoyed. And I loved it, like, you know, the actual thing itself isn't that surprising, and I liked the story behind it of him taking it home, being told it doesn't work, and then electrocuting his own daughter with it. So yeah, that's quite funny, and as Greg said, that's the part that makes this surprising, that he wouldn't test it on himself, that like the test subject would be his daughter. Anya brought in a mixtape that she was given but never listened to because she didn't have something to use it, and this was by someone called Ray, and I do feel really bad for Ray like to create something for someone and then not listen to it and then bring it onto a comedy show like 10 years later or however long. It's just, yeah, quite sad, but it was really sweet. I liked that they played the intro, and it was just made funny by the fact that he sounded like an old woman or an old man or something. But yeah, I thought it was sweet, and it was a surprising item that you wouldn't find something to try and listen to it with. But yeah, I did like that. I thought it was a very good one. We then had Sanjeev, and Sanjeev's one I did enjoy, and I liked how mainly I liked how like enthusiastic he was in this. Like, he was really like bigging it up. I don't know whether because like it wasn't the strongest prize task in comparison to everyone else's, but I loved his enthusiasm, him really engaging with Greg, like trying to get Greg to guess and being like overexcited about whatever the thing was inside, like really overdoing it. I thought it was really funny. So his was some Christmas crackers, and when you opened one it had a banana in, and then you opened banana, and then there was another mini cracker in, and then inside that one was a picture of Greg. There was part of me that was thinking it would be like a urine sample again, because he's already brought in a urine sample 2 times, so I was sure that it would be a urine sample in the last one, but it wasn't. It was a picture of Greg. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was quite good. Very like basic in terms of like a surprise task, but I do like the ones where it's like the Russian doll thing, where there's one thing inside another and things like that. We had a task like that previously, so I did enjoy it. It's just in comparison to everyone else's, it's just not as strong. I thoroughly enjoyed Maisie's one, and this was a compilation album that she had made. She called it Now What's That About You, and it was full of surprising facts from contestants that she had got from like their friends or relatives, which I thought was so funny. So we heard Phil's one, which was that when he was younger he went through a phase of only saying hedgehog no, which was hilarious. And then Reese's one was from Steve, which is a former Taskmaster contestant, and his thing was that he used to draw pornographic pictures of tutors at college, and that people would have requests, and then he dropped the bomb that it was true, which is not surprising, but people used to request animals. Sanjeev coming in with hedgehog no was hilarious. He is so quick, and it was just so funny. Like, it was, perfect moment. It was the best thing anyone could have said at that point. It was so funny. My only criticism with this task is I want to hear everybody else's facts, or did she only get 2 people? I would have really enjoyed to see what other facts that she managed to get. And then finally we saw Phil's, which was a big grandfather clock that had a mini fridge inside. And it was surprising, I'll give him that, but this is the item I think that I would most want to own. I thought it looked really cool, and it's one of those like quirky, fun little things you could have in your house that is a surprising thing for like guests. Like, it's real novelty things. I really enjoyed that, and like I said, I'd really just want to have that. This I thought was a very strong round. I think everybody put in a really good amount of effort, and everybody like was creative. Every prize was so different. Like, it was just really good. I just love the amount of effort people are putting into the prize tasks now. Like, that we obviously went through a phase where people were being a little bit lazy, or like they just weren't really the best prizes, but this series has just been incredible for the prize tasks. The way Greg scored this is he gave 1 point to Sanjeev, 2 points to Phil, 3 to Reese, 4 points to Maisie, and then 5 points for Anya. And I do agree with this. I think that's probably the right way to do it. Maisie's one, I wouldn't have been mad if he gave joint 5 points to Anya and Maisie, but I do think Anya's one just has that extra element of it being quite personal to like somebody who's not a comedian, or like someone in her personal life, which I think is just that added element of like, oh, this is real, like this is a real item that you've brought in that is surprising rather than like something you have created for the show. So yeah, another fantastic prize task round in my opinion. Now on to the first proper task, and this one was a really confusing one, and one that I think if I had been doing the show I would have been very annoyed at. So the task was to sit in the lobby when Alex honks the horn and then return to the living room when he blows the whistle. Alex would then ask them a question and they had 30 seconds to answer it, and their first answer counted, and that's what they had to write on the board, and they were told that there would be 10 questions. I thought this was such a good setup. So you look in the room, there's a bunch of things around them, and then there's a bunch of ducks in a circle in the middle as well with one blue one. So yeah, I thought the setup was quite good. I had no idea what to expect when they left the room. When they left, I did expect there to be a big change in the room. Like I wouldn't have been surprised if it was one of those things where it's straight away spot the difference basically. Like here we've removed some things, you've got to label all the things that you've removed. But I did think it was quite quick, so they didn't have much time in the living room to be able to work out what was around them. But like when that's kind of what I was expecting, or something along those lines. Like it was quite difficult to work it out, so I'm not surprised that everybody was very surprised about what the question was. So we started off seeing Anya, Maisie, and Phil's attempts on this one first. And you know, the setup is they walk out the room, they come back in and they ask the question, what's missing? And I thought it was so good. As someone watching, I was quite surprised that it was just as simple as what's missing, because like I said, they didn't have much time in the living room. So even though I was thinking it could be something along those lines, I kind of discounted it. I was like, well, that would be too hard because they haven't really had a chance to look around the room. The first thing everybody guessed was Phil and Anya both guessed duck, which is probably what I would have gone for first, but I probably also would have thought that's a red herring, it wouldn't be as easy as a duck. Maisie guessed whistle instead, but that was immediately shown that Alex did have his whistle, but I did quite like that guess, trying to think a bit outside the box. Anya and Phil both noticed that there were things appearing in the lobby, which I did think was quite smart, and the fact that they were the only ones to notice it I did think was quite surprising, because they were in the lobby for quite a while sometimes. So yeah, they were kind of looking around. Anya found the painting that had a bunch of different things on it, and was really looking at the clues. Phil as well was taking things off the shelf, being like, that's in there or that's not in there. So I did think that was quite a good idea, but neither of them really seemed to implement that into like their actual guesses. Not that it would have helped, perhaps because nothing really quite fit. It wasn't really relevant to the actual task at all. That was the red herring. So yeah, I did feel bad for them because they were the only ones that were there looking at what seems like clues as to what the answers were, and it just wasn't working for them. Maisie didn't seem to notice anything that was in the lobby, but her approach was just guessing nothing. For every question, the answer was nothing, which I did think, I get where she was going with this. I think it's something that Alex would do, that there is not something missing from each room or something's just been moved. It just, yeah, it is tricky whenever you go with just the same answer each time, because that could go in your favour or it could go completely the other way. I did like her approach when she was thinking, oh, maybe it's what missing in like a personal taste way. What do you think's missing from the decor? And her saying at the end, like, nothing, it's perfect as it is. I thought that was so funny. I think, as Greg pointed out, the fact that she was so smug about her answers and she really thought she had got the right idea was very, very funny. I just thought it was so tricky. Like, I was watching and I had no idea. There were times where they had like the bird's eye view of the ducks on the circle, and I did think it looked like there were less at some point. So I did think maybe duck was the answer for a few of them, but not for all of them. Where, as we'll see later on, we'll find out the actual answers. But it was such a good task. I thought the setup, it was confusing for like the contestants in the moment and us as viewers watching it as well. The duck man walking out of the toilet was hilarious, and everybody's reaction to that was just perfect. I thought it was so funny. The added thing at the end here was the final question was slightly different. There was a different question at one point, which was what's new to the room, which I thought was a really fun like diversion in this task. Like you go in there thinking, right, I'm going to spot what's missing, you get halfway through the question and then it's what's new. That was really good. And then the final question was, what connects all the answers? All the correct answers, that is. Maisie obviously guessed nothing. Phil was like, all things he's been left in his will, so just went for a silly answer. But Anya guessed everything, like all those things were in the lobby. So I do like her kind of sticking with a clue that she had seen. And yeah, I think she definitely had a really good approach to this one. It's just a shame that wasn't really what was happening. I loved Alex tricking them and us by showing, you know, all the clues that are in the lobby, and the paintings all had like a letter associated to them, and then the order that they went into the shelf, and then saying that that's not what happened, that's got nothing to do with anything, which I thought was hilarious, especially because as we were showing that, I could feel the outrage bubbling up, being like, this is ridiculous, how are you supposed to understand that, like how are you supposed to get that at all, and then it's just be a trick. It was really funny. Like, he got me 100%. I thought it was so funny. We then saw Reese and Sanjeev, and I loved both their attempts as well. Reese was just angry the entire time, which again is what we expect, but I still think it's really funny. He did guess ducks a lot of the time, like his first one was one of the many ducks, but as we went along, like he did start thinking that the ducks were a red herring, which I definitely understand. And then he started playing with some like funny or silly answers. So getting angry at Alex, so that when he said like, oh, what's the thing, when he introduced him as just Reese, he said, oh, it's Mr. Reed, that's what's missing, you should have put that in. So that I thought was a funny answer. I just loved how adamant he was that nothing in the lobby had changed when a lot of things had changed in the lobby. But yeah, that was so funny. And then the duck man walking out as soon as he said that was just hilarious. I thought just the setup of this one was so good. He did guess like duck for a lot of the answers, and I do think that's a good thing to guess when it, like, you've got nothing else to go on, because it's the one thing that's right in your face, and it's like, yeah, I guess one of them could be missing, sure, why not? So I get that approach definitely. Sanjeev, as well, as we saw, had a very similar approach to that as well. His first answer, though, being my enthusiasm, was so good. Just the look on everybody's faces, like everyone had the same reaction when Alex said what's missing. So it's a simple question and like a simple setup as well. And just it made everybody's like face drop. So funny. But yeah, him guessing my enthusiasm was so funny. And the fact that it took him like 2 or 3 attempts of walking out of the room and coming back in to just say, well, I'll just stay in the room and write down all my answers. I'll write the next one to save you having to do it. And then ended up just writing all of them. And I love that Alex allowed him to do that, because you could argue it's unfair or whatever, but like, I thought it was quite a good approach. It changes up the task a little bit. Because yeah, we've seen every other contestant not really get any luck with actually trying to work out what's missing. So I think just guessing all of the ones ahead is quite funny and quite a good idea. Not in terms of like actually potentially winning the task, but in just like, it's a funny thing to do. But he did guess duck for majority of the answers. Sometimes he guessed 1 duck, sometimes he guessed 2 ducks. The fact that he was like focusing so much on writing his answers, which was just duck every time, to miss the duck man walking into the room and then out through the other door was just hilarious. Alex, like, I would have cracked if I was Alex. That was just so funny. But yeah, his final answer at the end was I do, as like that's what connects all the answers, which I thought was quite smart. Like, it is something that you could argue as like being correct. It's like, well, no, I connect all the answers because I wrote all the answers down. Reese also guessed duck things, which again, quite smart. The fact that there have been ducks everywhere in terms of like lots of ducks in the actual room. And then like the duck man, I think that's quite a smart guess as well. I think there was a really good setup, especially that one time where they had all the ducks like all around the room. So you're like, okay, well, they're obviously messing with the ducks somehow, but are they taking them away? It would really confuse you. And like, I thought it was so funny on Phil's attempt when he walked in, saw there was no ducks on the table and said, oh yeah, the ducks are missing. And then he looked around and saw all the ducks around him. It was just really funny. So what was actually revealed at the end was that it was the ducks that were being taken out of the room. Alex would take 1 duck and put it out the window onto a little ledge. And then on the what's new question, he'd put a duck back in. So yeah, I thought it was quite funny. My thought on this one, before it was revealed that it was the ducks, was that could you not just take an item out of the room each time? And like, you're purposefully taking the item out. So if you take a duck out, you could then write duck on the next one, if that makes sense. Like, as soon as you kind of realise that's the pattern that's going on is each time you walk in, you're going to be asked what's missing. If you just take something out of the room each time, so it is missing from the room, whether or not that would be a good workaround. Obviously, you'd be kind of screwed on the what's new question, but I think that might be a good workaround. Especially, I think I would have been fed up at like halfway through and been like, well, I'll just take something out and that be the end of it. But yes, the real answer was ducks, as I said. I definitely did notice, like I said, a couple missing on the wheel thing in the middle. But I didn't think it'd be ducks on every answer. But one thing that I think the contestants could have done, which I am surprised that nobody did, was try and work out where the items were going, because they were in the lobby, so they would have been able to see if anybody or anything came out of the living room door. So you'd have to think, well, where are they going? If they're not coming out that door, there's either like the doors to outside or the window. So you could have looked out the room. I think the issue there though as well is you do only have like 30 seconds in the room before you have to go back out. But yeah, you could have perhaps quickly ran and had a look outside to see if you could see anything there, which then would have really helped you. Again, the downside to that is you can't change your answers, so if you'd done that on like 8 or 9, you still would have been screwed. But yeah, I thought it was a really good setup. I think it's one that really confuses the contestants and would have had you thinking about for so long, and for the answer to be just simple in plain sight, well, of course it's the ducks that's missing, is very funny. So in terms of scoring, Maisie came last. I don't think she wrote duck a single time, so got 1 point. Phil got 2 points. I think they were quite generous with giving him half a point for all the ducks. But yeah, he gets 2 points. Anya gets 3, Reese gets 4, and Sanjeev incredibly gets 5 points. Yeah, just a really good setup for a task, I think. Now, on to the second one, and this one we saw them come in harnesses, and I was really hoping they would actually like be suspended from something to like do a task like in the air. I thought that would have been a really cool one, and I do think like going on that idea, it could be a good idea to have like like one of the task locations be like high wire course or something. You've got to do a task up in the air like that, because they've done things in like theme parks before as well, so it's like that could be a potentially good location. But obviously if people are afraid of heights, then it would be very good. But yeah, anyway, they were actually just attached for safety onto like the railing, just because they would be leaning over. So yeah, definitely makes sense, safety comes first. But I did like obviously Anya running away while attached to the harness and making that cat noise. It was so funny, and the fact that she did it again as well. I mean, I can't blame her. I probably would have seen like how far I could have gone with the harness on, but as you said, it does pull you back quite quickly. So yeah, I'm surprised she just kept doing it, but it was so funny. So the task on this one is they had to paint the best picture of one animal on top of another animal. And yeah, the rule was they had 15 minutes, they couldn't leave the balcony, not that they could have done really with the harness on. But yeah, it was basically another long distance painting, and it was quite a big canvas they were given, and they were given a bunch of like long paint brushes. There was a mop that was really long and a tube, like lots of different things they could use here. A lot of people did go for the mop, and I did think that was quite a tricky item to use, although obviously none of the items are going to be easy to use. See, it's not precise, but I just think it seemed quite difficult to use. I think it's just quite heavy at the end. You'd want something that's a bit lighter, maybe, a bit more easy to control, maybe, I don't know. But the paintbrush that was like dangling on as well, that seemed really tricky to use. I think I probably would have gone for like the toothbrush one. I don't really know, but I think that's the one I would probably have leaned to. But yeah, it was really funny seeing everyone's attempts. Lots of really funny moments, like Phil struggling to make brown. I liked Anya, Sanjeev and Reese all using the tube and like getting Alex to pour the paint down, and Reese getting angry when he thought Alex was still pouring the paint down was really funny, and Alex's response was great as well. But yeah, this I thought was a really fun one that I think would have been quite difficult. I think if it was me, I would have tried to have done something that's quite like easily recognisable, like an elephant perhaps. You could have just done like a grey blob with like a trunk and legs like that. I think that would have been like an easy one to do. You don't really have to use more than one colour. And then I don't know what I would have done on top, like a snake probably would have been a good idea, but anyone who did do a snake did seem to struggle. But yeah, I did think it was a good attempt. I liked seeing Reese, who, you know, is very good at drawing. He does seem to excel at a lot of the art tasks, to not do too well on this one. It was like levelling the playing field quite well, I think. And it did, like I said, it did seem very difficult. So I was quite impressed with some of the drawings that we saw. So we saw Phil's one first, and it was so good. I was really impressed by this one. The orangutan especially was just fantastic, immediately recognisable. And the thing at the bottom, I was thinking like wolf was what I think it looked most like. Obviously, it doesn't really apply with the fire aspect. But even so, even if you can't recognise it directly as exactly what animal it is, it's recognisable as an animal. So yeah, I thought this one was fantastic. We then saw Sanjeev's, and it wasn't quite as good. His one was apparently a cat on top of a hippo. And I did like that he took a different approach of drawing it with like doing a bird's eye view. So like the hippo with then like the cat on top. I thought that was an interesting approach because, you know, he's basically just had to draw two blobs basically. So I did like that. It was a different approach to it. Maisie's one was a snake on top of a pig. I thought the pig wasn't too bad. You know, like you said, she got the swirly tail, but the snake on top, not recognisable as a snake. And I would argue that the snake is probably the easiest one to draw, especially out of a snake or pig. A snake is definitely easier to draw than a pig. But I love that this went into them talking about the shape of a pig's penis and stuff, and like it being a corkscrew, which is really odd. But then Phil joking about it being like the arms of a corkscrew. I thought that was so funny. Yeah, just brilliant. Reese's one, like it was like the crocodile was really good, but the thing on top, like did not get it at all. But I do get what Greg was saying. Apparently it was a panda, and at first it just looked like a bunch of squiggles, but when he said it was like, oh, it's like looking to the side and stuff, like I get what he was saying, but to me it was just a bunch of like black blobs. But I do think he should be rewarded for the fact that crocodile was quite good. And then we saw Anya's one, and I do agree that I think Anya's probably was the worst, but probably on par with Sanjeev's. Hers was a whale with a monkey on top. Greg did guess dolphin, which I think is close enough. I definitely understand like the aquatic thing. I thought it's probably something that's in the water. I was thinking hippo again, like Sanjeev's. But yeah, she put a orangutan on, but I liked that she misremembered what it was and thought it was a monkey. I love that she misremembered what it was and said that it was like a bird, which it definitely wasn't. So yeah, that just kind of proves that it wasn't that good. But yeah, I do think it's tricky. I don't think I could have done anything that was anywhere near as good as everybody else's. So I do agree with the way Greg scored it generally. So he gave joint 4th place to Sanjeev and Anya's. I do agree with that. I like that there's a bit of recognition there for the effort that goes into it. Maisie and Reese then both got 4 points, and then Phil got 5. Personally, I would have given Maisie and Reese maybe 3 points each just to have that separation for Phil's, because I feel like Phil's was miles better than everybody else's. Both animals were recognisable. It was neat. It was, yeah, I just thought it was really good, and yeah, just a step above everybody else's. Now, on to the 3rd task, and this one, again, was quite a confusing, tricky one. And it was, they walk into the dome, and the first thing they see is, please read and do the task immediately. The time starts when you entered the dome. And yeah, so immediately you'd be panicked, you'd be thinking, oh God, what do I have to do? And then, yeah, so they open the task and read it. They had to read the instructions and then do what it said immediately. So the first one was to stand on one leg, and they had to stay standing on one leg. They had to put one finger in their ear and one hand on their head, and then keep it there for the rest of the time. And then they had to pull an extreme facial expression. And the key thing here was that if you stop doing any of those, then your task is over. I would have been out straight away. Like Phil, I have flat feet, so I have terrible balance. But yeah, I do think if I hadn't have realised that you could like rest on something, I would have been out straight away. So obviously they are there, stood there with their hands basically not being able to use. You're on one leg balancing and you're pulling a horrible facial expression, and you're there stuck thinking, what on earth do I have to do? So I like the setup of this. It really forces them to like try and work in like a new way of not using their like arms and legs properly. So their clues were, there was a chicken on one side and there was an apple turnover. And these are both clues to tell you to turn over the task. Apple turnover, I think, was the best clue because like it's a bit random. You're like, what apple turnover? Chicken, the clue there was the joke. Why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? So telling you to look at the other side. That one I thought was a bit more tricky to get personally. But yeah, most people did get that. Phil, though, did struggle to turn the task over, which I thought was really funny. but the actual task was to say the most 5-letter words. But the tricky part here is that if you say the same word as somebody else, then you get -5 words from your total, and they had 20 minutes. So yeah, part of me did think that it's like, oh, is the best option just to not say many words, because -5 points is like a pretty big penalty. If it had been -2, I probably would have just gone like what with Reese and Filtered and just say as many words as possible, or just try and think of a few really obscure words, which I think would have been quite tricky to do. So we started off seeing Reese, Phil and Anya, and I loved that Reese never realised that at any point he could rest, but this just made it so much funny. The fact that he was able to stand on one leg for 20 minutes and keep pulling, you know, relatively extreme facial expression for the majority of it was so impressive. And thinking of words for the full 20 minutes, 117 words that he came up with. So good. I loved like some of his strings that he had, as Greg pointed out. It was like pain, tired, cruel, hurts, like so good. It's obviously just the thing that's in your mind. And this, I think, it just shows like an incredible amount of effort and like pain tolerance as well, because that would have been painful, I think, on like every aspect of it. But yeah, really impressive. Phil had the good idea to rest, so he was able to get his leg on the stand, which I thought was really good. But you could have like rested, if you have your hand on top of your head, you could have just rested there and at least just have some sort of balance there, just to make it a bit easier on your legs. But yeah, he guessed quite a lot of words as well, and I thought it was a very good attempt. Anya, however, I did feel bad for her in terms of like her approach on the task. You would have been quite gutted at that, but it did end up working in her favour. But she got confused at the task wording, I think, and wanted to read it again, and then lifted her hand off her head to pick up the task. I think she just thought that it'd be like a penalty or something, not that the task would end. But yeah, the task did end, so she just had to stop doing it, which was it was quite fortunate for her, actually. We then saw Maisie and Sanjeev, and neither of them really got to do the task at all. Maisie didn't understand the clues. She knocked over the chicken and then took a bite of the apple turnover. None of these were registering to her as clues. I think it just confused her even further. She just decided and just thought that that was the task, was just to pull the expressions and that she was done. And she was like, oh, well, you would tell me if there was something else to do. It's just this extra thing of like not really understanding. And like, I would have been confused as well if I hadn't have turned over the task, but you'd be like, well, how are they going to score this? Like, is it just standing here? You know, I would have maybe thought, if I didn't know that there was an extra part of the task, that it was maybe standing like that for the longest wins or something. But I fear I would have been like Sanjeev's attempt and wouldn't have been able to keep standing on one leg for very long. So he was out of this task pretty much immediately. Didn't really get a chance to do anything at all. I don't even think he read the other part of the task, like didn't know what he was doing at all. But in terms of scoring, unfortunately, people who said the most words obviously matched words with other people, so then got a lot of penalties. Reese, I felt so bad for, 117 words but repeated 41 of them, which actually isn't too bad. Like I said, if it was only -2, you would still be in with a chance, but he ended up getting a score of -88. Maisie, I was surprised with how low her score was, considering like she didn't seem to do the task for very long, like she didn't do it as intended. So she got -81 points. Phil got -74. Anya -49. But then Sanjeev wins this task with only getting -32 points. As Alex pointed out, if you just said nothing at all, you would have won. I do like this kind of task where there is a twist, but I do always feel bad for the people who put in so much effort and do the task correctly, whereas if you're just bad at it, you win. Obviously, if all the tasks were like this, it'd be ridiculous. So I do think one every once in a while is quite good, but yeah, I do always feel like, oh, what's the point if like you do the task properly and you end up losing, even though you've done the task in as best possible. So I think if it was me making this task, like I said, I probably would have reduced the penalty to be -2 points. There still would have been that incentive to come up with a lot of words and to say a lot of words. So I think that probably would have balanced it a bit better in my opinion. But overall, I did enjoy it. I think it is one of those tasks that forces the contestants into like in a more undignified position and stuff. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed that. And I think Greg saying in terms of like Anya's thing that he was glad she got knocked out because he didn't think she was holding the facial expression, but I would argue that nobody really did hold their facial expression, because if you're talking as well, you're not going to keep it. So I do think that they were good to be a bit lenient in that regard as well, especially with everybody else. Obviously, she would have been immediately disqualified anyway with taking a hand off. Not even disqualified, just that's when the task ended. But yeah, I do think everybody else's facial expressions weren't great either. Now, on to the studio task, and this one I thought was really fun. It was another team one. So for this task, they had to demonstrate to the taskmaster the idiom that was being demonstrated to you by your teammate. And the rules were here that you had to be silent throughout the entire attempt, and you had to remain on your spots. So we started off seeing one of the team of twos ones first. And they obviously got confused. Well, Reese mainly got confused. Obviously, the key here is to do it at the same time as the person demonstrating it to you. That's how the task is designed. But I think Reese must have thought, like, oh, if I understand what Maisie's doing, then I can do it in like a different way or a better way to Greg. But this, yeah, obviously was the downside to their attempt. Like, it was so funny that as soon as Reese started demonstrating his thing, that's when the whistle went and the time was over. Just perfect. But yeah, then we saw the team of three, and I do laugh that Anya called Greg out for being the weak link, because I do agree. I think it was maybe a little bit premature, because there was nothing Greg could have done with the first attempt from the team of two. But I do think he was a little bit weak in guessing that one. I did think some of his guesses were so bad. Like on one of them when he got blue moon but didn't guess once in a blue moon. Like for the team of three, I would have been so angry at that one. And again, with one of the team of two's approach this time, was he got cold foot but then it took a while for him to get cold feet from that. Like, I do think Greg just wasn't the best at guessing these. I also don't think the contestants' actions were the best at some times. There were some bits that I didn't understand what they were getting for. I do think Sanjeev had a good idea of like doing charades, almost like saying first word this, second word like that. I think was a good idea, rather than like demonstrating the actual idiom itself, just getting them to guess the words. But obviously I do think that takes up a bit more time, because you've got like 5 or 6 words to do. But yeah, some of them a little bit easier. Some like cold feet I thought was quite easy. Blue moon I do think was quite tricky. Like once in the blue moon it would be quite tricky to like demonstrate to somebody. But yeah, I am annoyed on their behalf that Greg got the blue moon aspect but just didn't complete the idiom there. Yeah, that was pretty rough. But this way that ended up was the team of two ended up getting 3 correct, and team of 3 didn't get any correct. So he gave 5 points each to the team of 2 and then no points to the team of 3. I perhaps would have given them 1 or 2 points each, because like I said, they did do a good job with some of them by getting most of the idiom across. It's just Greg didn't guess it right. So yeah, I might have been nice and given them 1 point each, because 0 seems really harsh. But this means that Reese wins episode 8. And as I said, I am really gutted that there's only 2 more episodes to go, but I am really looking forward to it. I think it's been really strong. I've really enjoyed these tasks in this episode. I thought they were all really strong. I particularly like the duck one, just because it's like something that's quite different, something that really confuses the contestants and confused us as watching, or at least it confused me. And there were perhaps like some workarounds you could have done, and I liked them tricking us into thinking there was like some really elaborate clue hidden there when actually there wasn't. It was very obvious it was just the ducks that were going missing. So I liked that one. And I always love a like long distance painting arty task, and I think that was quite a good like new approach of doing it, of like doing it from like above, like really high above. So yeah, I did enjoy that one. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. It really helps the channel, and comment down below your thoughts on this episode. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Which one was your favourite task? And subscribe if you want to see more videos of Taskmaster. I'll have some more out for you soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!